Um,
Does anyone spark your fancy? We'll maybe talk for it a little bit.
we did talk about, maybe we should tell the audience our relationship with WWE and why we review Dynamite, not maybe NXT or one of the main shows.
Okay, we can do that there. So you want to talk about our relationship with WWE? Let's get into it then. So do you want to take us through? Uh, do you want to take us through your relationship with WWE, and I'll let people a bit of history of it, a bit of the just kind of fill us in what how you ended up becoming a wrestling fan a little bit.
Oh, sure. Well, I started watching wrestling on a regular basis in the early 2000s, and of course, I started with WWE because what else was on TV? There was no other wrestling available, and I was the biggest mark you could possibly imagine as a kid, and I had all the merch. Wrestling was my life, and then I discovered through the rise of the internet that there's more wrestling out there, a different wrestling, as you might say. I think the first moment that opened my eyes was WWE ECW One Night Stand, because the wrestling they showed on One Night Stand was just on a different level altogether. And shortly after this, we did get a little bit of TNA on German TV, and TNA Impact was like just amazing. You know, it was amazing because it was so different. You had the stars, but you had all those guys I didn't know, and they were doing crazy shit. They were doing crazy flips, and they were wrestling so fast. And the entire X Division thing they are going for themselves was some of the best wrestling period you could see back then. And TNA was a very good blend of sports entertainment and uh, athletic wrestling. And of course, I got to watch some ROH, some New Japan and stuff like that. And I had all this wrestling going on in my life, and at some point I kind of lost my passion for it a little bit, to be honest, and I dropped out of wrestling altogether. I stopped watching WWE at first, then I stopped watching TNA. Then I didn't watch any wrestling for a couple of years. I came back in 2013ish, and uh, I don't know. I feel like by then I became the internet fan. Like I watched it, but I was complaining about it all the time. But I still found some enjoyment in it, and I I stopped watching WWE when all this Roman Reigns BS just I couldn't take it anymore. Stopped watching, and I probably shouldn't say the next part because it makes me sound like a horrible person. But when Roman Reigns announced that he had to step back from wrestling, I came back to the product for a while. And well, earlier this year in January, I had to reevaluate my my life with WWE again because I think it was SmackDown. I sat down, I wanted to watch SmackDown, and I was like, how much of the show will I skip this week? And in my head, it was like, I think this week I will skip the entire show. Because building up to that, I didn't watch 3 hours of Raw. I didn't watch 2 hours of SmackDown. I watched half an hour of SmackDown maybe, because I just could skip through everything because everything was just. It felt dreadful. Why watch the TV matches? They don't put any effort into this. So maybe just watch the promos for the stories. Well, there weren't that many good promos, and that's kind of why I'm why I'm now on the AW train. It's the alternative I was looking for. Like TNA in its glory days, it's the blend of sports entertainment and athletic wrestling. It's kind of my style. But I've been talking for quite a while there. And I mean, poor old John just listened to me going on and on.
I'm happy to listen because, like, again, it gives us a better insight to why your current preferences are the way they are. Like, when it came to me, I was very much like yourself. I grew up in the 90s. With wrestling, I was watching the Attitude Era stuff when the Attitude Era stuff was going live. I was made aware of WCW, funny enough, by the fact that me and my best friend used to play WCW versus NWO Revenge. That was like the only sampling I weirdly got of like WCW. Never really watched it, more watched WWE. And I used to spend like my Saturdays watching SmackDown highlights and on a Sunday watching Heat and whatnot from the previous week because that's just the way UK television was at the time. But I kind of got into wrestling at that point and, you know, obviously had my favorites. Of course, I was a Kane guy when I was growing up. I fucking loved Kane. There's just something about Kane. It was just, to me, it was like, this is amazing. He's like a big demon who fights for justice. Because he was, at this point, he was a babyface. He's like a big demon who fights for justice. And I loved that stuff. Like, I got really into that stuff. And then I was watching it up until about, I think maybe just the start of Ruthless Aggression era. And I won't lie, it kind of like for a while I was like, ooh, I just dropped out. Like wrestling just did not interest me at that point. I felt like again, it was the people I loved were no longer the focal points, and I was kind of that mentality, like, who the hell is this person, and what's a Cena and all this crap, and I wasn't really digging it, and I dropped out for a while. And then weirdly enough, I came in like back when you like kind of when you did with like the TNA stuff. We started getting TNA on UK television here on like what's called Challenge TV at the time and whatnot. And I started watching like TNA. This was just before we had like the Eric Bischoff Hogan era, where we still had quite a lot of big focus on the likes of Daniels, like Daniels and Kazarian we see today. We still have quite a bit of focus on him, which has been great because I've been kind of watching their career kind of transition since then. There's a nice like sort of transcendental little nature to that there that I kind of
Chris Daniels started wrestling in the early 90s.
Oh yeah, he done some matches for WWE as a jobber for a while, and then I think he was on the Indies for a while, but like his big break was with like TNA, if my understand's correct. But like I got really into them, and I was getting into AJ Styles and Samoa Joe and the big lad, the Abyss and stuff. Like I was really digging that stuff with TNA, and then I got turned on to the Nexus stuff. It brought me back to WWE, funny enough, was the Nexus stuff, and I got really into that there. And this is before the Punk pipe bomb crap and all that stuff, where I know a lot of people got back in with the Punk pipe bomb because that was a very polarizing and sort of like a big shot into the arm of wrestling. But I kind of came in before that there because it was the segment where Nexus destroyed the ring, beat the living bejesus out of John Cena and stuff. You know, I got into that there because I was like, whoa, what are they doing over there? It's just pretty cool. Like, it was jarring. It was different. It was new. It looked real for once again. I was like, maybe I should go back and watch WWE. And I kind of got back in from that there standpoint. And I was watching that for a while. And then the Summer of Punk happened, the pipe bomb and everything. And then I'm not going to lie, I dropped off again because Kevin Nash killed it for me. I was just getting back into things, and then Kevin Nash came in and just absolutely just decimated Punk, and I was just like, why? Why are you here? Why are you doing this? I just saw you on TNA a few months ago. Why are you here? Why are you ruining this angle? Why are you ruining this? And I got really pissed off with that. I'm not going to lie. It really got to me that Punk ended up having the Summer Punk really dropped quite fast. And that made me, that kind of took me out of wrestling again. So I dropped out again. And then I was kind of like just drifting along. And I was getting little bits, like every so often I would be like, some of my mates would go like, do you want to watch WrestleMania this year? I was like, okay, I'll watch WrestleMania. And I'd watch the odd WrestleMania here and there, and I'd be like, oh yeah, that's cool. Oh, there's Ed still? Okay, that's cool. Like, you know, like little people I knew from like the days of that, you know, like my nostalgia pop, like going, That's cool. That's cool. And then I started. I actually met someone in work who was a wrestling fan, and he got me really back into it. He was really smart and how he got me back into it. He started me on like ROH and New Japan. And this is just as like Jericho is like invading New Japan. This is where he's going after Kenny Omega. Like I'm here like Chris Jericho is like going to this promotion. I'm like, what's New Japan? He's like, oh yes, this is where this amazing promotion where with Ring of Honor and stuff, and they work over there, and they work over in Japan as well. And there's this faction called the Bullet Club, and Jericho's shown up, and I'm like, this is really interesting. Like, yeah, it's like, do you remember NWO? I was like, yeah, I remember NWO. They were kind of cool for a while before they became uncool. And he's like, yeah, like imagine like a new generation of the NWO that are not crap. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I start getting into it, and like I'm seeing the Young Bucks, I'm seeing Kenny Omega, who I love. I'm seeing Cody, and I'm like, and I remember Cody from WWE, and I'm like, is that Cody from WWE? It's like, yeah, but he's not allowed to use the Rhodes name, and I'm getting into that there, and I'm starting to fall in love with New Japan and ROH. And I'm like, okay, I'll give WWE another chance. I'll get a flavor for it. I'll get a taste for it again. And I'm watching WWE because it's got weekly shows. Like, I still watch New Japan, but they don't do weekly shows. And I was like, right, I'm getting back into wrestling again. I need weekly shows. And ROH don't really do weekly. They do weekly, but it's not like weekly in the sense of what they do, what WWE or AEW do. They kind of like record angles.
Was this 2017? Or when was that? Yeah.
There was about 2017, like we're talking like Jericho is like in the full height of taking on Kenny Omega. So we're talking like it's the Alpha versus Omega angle. And this is the first year I even purchased New Japan World. I'm watching it live. I'm watching it, which was great as well because like for me, New Japan's shows air at like 9 or 10 in the morning, which means I'm not having to like stay up all night and watch these shows. I get to watch them live and stuff. Which is really great. And I'm getting into it like that there. I'm getting into this point where it's like me and New Japan, and I'm really getting into that there. And I start watching WWE just to kind of give myself that weekly hit. But the problem with WWE is that, like you said, their matches are a little bit stale during the TV shows. The storylines treat you like an idiot. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. WWE creative think you're an idiot and will try and pull the wool over your eyes every few weeks. It's like, oh, they will remember this here inconsistency here. Let's just do that there. Like, that makes no sense because of that thing over there. Why do you think I'm stupid? And that became more and more of a thing. And the promos were so lifeless, and the promos were so lacking of any sort of personality other than the terrible writer that wrote them. And I started to get really annoyed that they kept hot-shotting angles and like nothing was let to breathe. And then I'd watch New Japan, and I'd maybe watch like 4 shows, maybe like 4 shows in 2 months, and then I'd get the G1, and I would get like, bloody 15 shows in like 3 weeks, and the way they done the storytelling between those like 5 months, even though there was less shows, so much room to breathe. And I was getting into it. And Kevin Kelly over in New Japan, brilliant announcer, doesn't get enough credit for what he does. He was working with he's working with the guy that actually owns TNA right now, or doesn't own TNA, but he's like their EVP, or he's their CEO. Guy plays Cyrus in the ECW days. I can't remember his name now. God. But them two are on, regardless, them two are on commentary, and they're kind of like filling you in and giving me some of the backstory. I'm kind of like looking at the two products, and I'm kind of like looking at New Japan, and I'm looking at WWE, and I'm like, why are they able to do more with less time versus this TV show that's on weekly that do less with more time? How does that work? Quite got to me a little bit. That annoyed me, and all the hot shotting and whatnot just kind of really put me off the product. And just as All Out is happening, I feel like I'm starting to hit that point where I was like yourself, it's like I'm watching less of the shows. And this is before AEW even existed. I'm like watching less of the shows. I'm just working on highlights at this point. Like I'm going onto the YouTube channel and I'm just clicking the segment that I think looks interesting. I'm going on to like Wrestle Talk or Cultaholic or whatever, and I'm getting updates from them guys, because at that point it's like, why bother watching the match? They'll watch it for me and tell me what I need to look out for, and if I think it's interesting, I'll go search for it. I'll go look it up myself. I'll watch a segment then, because they're going to tell me, at least say, this was interesting, this wasn't, maybe you're interested in this, and it'll give me a guiding point for him to spend 5 hours of my week looking at this stuff. And the more dependent I became on that, the less dependent I became on WWE as a show. And I just couldn't. It got to the point where I was kind of like watching, I was watching these updates and these clip shows, and then I'd watch the pay per view. That was the only thing I watched in full was the pay per view, and I feel like, much to the point you raised earlier, when you don't watch the show, when you skim a show, are you really enjoying the show? What's the point?
Yeah,
you know. And it's something that I don't know about you, but like, I just can't do that. I just can't. I life's too short, and I don't have enough time to suffer through bad TV.
Yeah, I mean, if you just put yourself in the shoes of a true WWE fan, if you want to follow all the wrestling product, 3 hours of Raw, 2 SmackDown, 1 NXT, 2 hours NXT, sorry. 7 hours. Main event, 8 hours. 205 Live, 9 hours. Maybe you got a pay-per-view, 13, 14 hours with pre-show. Maybe TakeOver 2. You're at 17, 18 hours of product you would need to consume in a certain week, right?
Yeah.
That's insane. Just insane.
And even then, it's like, what do they do with that time? They do very little with it.
Most of that is crap. I mean, like the 5, 7, 8, 9 hours of TV. Are they even doing 205 Live anymore?
I think so.
Probably not right.
I think they still are, yeah, but it's done from the
performance. Let's just say 8 hours of TV. How much of that is even good TV? Like,
maybe a half an hour, 40 minutes at most.
I mean, the NXT stuff is better.
Yeah, okay. If we're talking main roster, yeah. Like, NXT is good, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Like,
NXT takeovers are really stellar. Really stellar.
Yeah. NXT's great. Like, that's a great show. Like, NXT is brilliant. You know, and I love NXT. I may talk a lot about AEW. I love NXT. Like, NXT has done me right for the years. Like, that was the one thing that I didn't really skip through, is because, like, NXT, you know, I was really enjoying the Gargano and Ciampa feuds. I really dug those. Like, who couldn't dig those? You know, the Shayna Baszler run was wild. The Asuka run was wild. Like, they had some great story beats and whatnot.
Shinsuke Nakamura in NXT was so great. Kevin Owens, Samoa Joe, Finn Balor,
Sami Zayn. He had a stellar match, or he had a stellar feud, or he had a stellar opening match with Shinsuke. Their first match was just
incredible. Or a couple of years ago, Pete Dunne versus now I'm blanking, the other guy from Masters Mountain. Thanks. Didn't they even get a 5-star match? It was incredible.
Yeah, the 5-star match for the belt. Yeah. That's where the belt went into Tyler Bates' hands. That was a great,
incredible. Always it. And yeah, NXT great product, especially the takeovers when they pull out everything they have, right? And then one night later, you have to watch the WWE main show pay-per-view, and it's like, how can you expect your audience to watch a WWE pay-per-view after a takeover? It's night and day. I felt like I was watching a takeover because I wanted to see the matches. It's amazing. And then I had to work my way through the pay-per-view because I was into the stories, at least, you know. That's the main show, WWE. You can't even watch it for the matches, because honestly most of them aren't that great. Once you compare it to matches outside of WWE, they need to hook you in with the story, and if the stories are shite, then the product is shite in the end.
Yeah, like it you know, The angle, like, you can have a good match, but you need an angle that's coherent and makes sense and draws you in if you want to watch that match. Like, I don't care about a match if you haven't given me a reason why these two people hate each other. Like, anyone can have a wrestling match. I need to know why they hate each other, you know? It has to make sense.
And I mean, if you look at WWE this year, the stuff that draw ratings was their soap opera stuff. The Rusev, Lashley, Lana cuckolding storyline that was stupid, but apparently people watched it. The Otis Mandy Rose storyline, yeah, all the soap opera stuff that drew people in. And what did those angles not revolve around? Wrestling.
Yeah.
And to a wrestling fan, this is just daunting.
It's weird. Like, it was so bizarre. Like, the angle they're doing at the minute on SmackDown with Jeff Hardy is all about it. And this is something I don't like what they do either. Like, they get too close to home with some of the angles. Like, they're really, like, putting the fact in that he's struggled with substance abuse in the past. And they treat that like fair game, and I don't like that. I don't like that.
That's not even the point. If Jeff Hardy is okay with doing that, you can do this in a tasteful manner. But of course they're not doing it. It's funny to them that he's substance abuse issues. It's funny to Vince. Vince is probably watching this and just laughing his ass off.
Yeah, and here's the thing: like, Matt Hardy,
they threw piss in someone's face. They taunt him. Oh, it's a bar fight. Like, ha ha ha! It's so funny that you can't control yourself.
And here's the thing as well. Like, did you see recently Matt Hardy said that he is concerned about the pressure that's on Jeff at the minute, which makes me think that Jeff is not totally high on this angle. That maybe
that's why I said if.
Yeah,
big if.
You know, and that's really concerning. That's really concerning to me, and I don't like that. Like, I hate the way they do this. They do it more often than they don't. They do this more often than they don't. You know? It really pisses me off. Really fucking pisses me off.
Yeah. And again, you hear the story often. A WWE product isn't made for the fans. It's made for an audience of one.
And it's telling. It's bloody well telling. It's I don't know, but those are very key reasons as to why I can't get behind it though. Like, I can't. It's so hard to do so. I even tried to expose my best friend to it as well. And what I done is that and fair play to him, he spent the whole time with me. It was the year, I think it was 2018. We had 2018, we had the WrestleMania event weekend was huge. Okay, so we had the show at Madison Square Garden, which was the ROH and New Japan Super Show. Then we had the takeover the night before, and then we had WrestleMania. I watched all three of them live. Like, I watched all of it live, and he watched it all live with me. And he was like super impressed by the NXT show, because he's like, these guys are phenomenal talent. These guys are incredible talent. I didn't know WWE was like this. Like, yeah, WWE can be good when they let it be good. And then he watched the ROH and the New Japan talent, and he's like, this is incredible again. This is great wrestling. And like, they even in the New Japan and the ROH stuff, they had some really interesting matches. Like, they had the freeway match between Marty Scurll. God damn it, who was it? Marty Scurll. Was it? Oh, it doesn't matter. But they had a triple threat match anyway. Then they had like the PCO match as well with the tag belts. They had the four-way tag belt match, and they had the theatrics of like PCO being shocked to life like a real life Frankenstein. They had the pomp and circumstance and some of the corniness that makes wrestling there, but they still had all the grit wrestling to back it up. And then it came to WrestleMania, and after going through that, you're just kind of like going, "What is this? This is so corny." And like, it was like such a, you could just see it just talking to him. He was just like, it's like, how did they manage to go from NXT to this? Like, this is like, half the time we were just going like, this is so stupid, this makes no sense, or this is so stupid, this makes no sense. This was WrestleMania, the biggest show of the year, you know? And I think it didn't help that there was like NXT, a massive New Japan match, and a massive ROH show together, and then it goes into that, because you have like 2 nights of stellar wrestling, storyline, everything, and then you have WrestleMania, which is just a big sort of a big circus, a big child circus, as I'll probably define it as. Like you get the odd 1 or 2 good matches on there, but it's more about a spectacle rather than the matches, and it plays into that spectacle more than the matches as well.
Yeah.
And you could just see from like a person who hasn't watched wrestling since he was a child. You could just see the disconnect of him going, the hell is this? Why do people watch? And like that's the thing. Like he said, like I understand why you watch the NXT stuff. I understand why you'd watch the ROH stuff. I understand why you would watch the New Japan stuff. I don't get WWE. I don't get it.
Yeah, and it's not even that all of it is bad from the main roster stuff. They even nowadays they put on good angles from time to time. It's just you have to put up with so much bovine manure to get to the good stuff, like, and you can't expect an audience to keep up with that.
Yeah, like I couldn't. I honestly couldn't. It would put me away. It put me away.
I ask myself often, was wrestling, was WWE better back then? Was I different? Well, I surely was different as a kid, as a teen. Yeah, but like, did the product stay the same and I outgrew it? Like, was it truly better back then? What's your take?
I went back and watched. Like I was sick for a while and I had a lot of time off work, and I did go back and rewatch like the start of the Attitude Era, which was like, I think it starts in like December '97 or something, or '98. But I watched that there, and there is a lot of crap. Like, don't get me wrong, when you go back and watch it, it's your nostalgia is hit pretty hard because you think about Austin, you think about The Rock, you think about Triple H, you think about like all those there, but there is a lot of crap segments in it. There is a lot of guff in there, and you forget that Brawl for All was in there. You forget about the kennel match. With Big Boss Man and Al Snow. You forget like all the jobber segments. You forget the Godwins and stuff and all that crap. There is a lot of crap there. There really is. Yeah. But your nostalgia you just remember Austin with the bloody beer hose. You remember Rock chucking the title into the river. You remember all of those angles. You never remember all of their stuff. And there was a lot of crap that was on the shows, but it was entertaining crap though. Like it was, I can still watch it and go, this is really stupid, but I can kind of still, I can still kind of watch it. Where like I can't watch because it's kind of puerile, and that's kind of like when stuff is kind of puerile and stupid, you kind of it's easier to watch. But when it's super sanitized, like where it is right now, and it's stupid, it's not easy to watch.
Yeah.
And
probably got a point there.
And you know what? It's not 3 hours long. It's not 3 hours long.
Yeah. When did they start the 3-hour Raw?
I think that was back in 2015 or 16. It was definitely like midway through the decade.
Yeah, it's. Whew. Yeah, like I said earlier, it's too much of the product, and yeah, too much of it is just bad. Like, and even if you just say, okay, I only got time for Raw, I only keep up with Raw, like with the pay-per-views and with things like the draft, you don't even get the full experience out of it.
No, you don't. I was way off on the calculation of when it went to 3 hours. It was later than that. It went earlier than that. It went to 3 hours in 2012.
Ooh.
It's been doing 3 hour segment or 3 hour shows for the last 8 years. Because it started on the 23rd of July, 2012.
When the ratings declined. started because the third R always tanks, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I get why they do it though. It rakes them a lot of money.
moolah, yeah.
Yeah, like there's a lot of advertising bucks in it. But like how much those advertising bucks are going to stay around if they're dropping the key down that we talked about earlier in the news? So it's still it's a hard sell, you know. That's still
What was the Raw rating back then? They were probably close to 5 million, weren't they? Between 4 and 5 million, I would say.
The average rating was a 3.3 million. With like peaks of 4.75.
Okay.
So you are talking like you're going from an average of 3.3 to an average of 1.5. You're talking like literally more than half actually.
Because I remember it was just 1.5 or 2 years ago. Well, 2 years ago probably, when they started to go into hardcore panic mode when they dropped under 3 million for the first time.
Yeah.
Like on a regular basis. Wasn't that when they did all the no more authority, the fans are the authority, Baron Corbin, it's Baron Corbin's fault and stuff like that.
Yeah, pretty much.
How
put it on
petty!
Corbin.
How petty!
You know what? That's terrible. Like, imagine you're the talent and your bosses go on live television and go, the ratings have dropped because you're boring. You're boring the fans, and we can't have you boring the fans anymore. It's like, no, he doesn't write the show. He gives the material you give him. But like it was an average of 3.3, with like an average rating of 3.3, which translates to about 4.75 million viewers. So,
okay.
But like, even SmackDown back then had like a 2.1 rating with like 3 million viewers as well. So both shows were doing over 3 million viewers, and now both shows are consistently under 2.
Do you think WWE will ever drop below 1 million?
Yes, I do think that's the case. I think I would say if we still have the current situation affecting us into next summer, yeah, we will. We'll see the drop below.
Because I've been hearing a lot that a lot of the Raw audience, it's the older fans who just do it out of habit. It's a Monday night, they flip on other TV like they do every week, and just watch Raw. And that's kind of your super core audience who do it out of habit. I didn't think the core audience was that small. Like maybe 1.5 million. That's about it.
I think so, yeah, and we're starting to see that as the core audience. Like, and again, we go back to it as it's like they are the 49 plus. They're the terrestrial TV habit watchers. Where the core demo, like ourselves, we're more inclined to look at stuff on the internet. We'll look at the clips. Like what they lose in their terrestrial TV time, they do get a lot back on YouTube views. So it's a really is a tale of two sides in that sense. You know, there's an incredible amount of like dynamic shift there with that there, and that plays a major part into it all. So I mean, for example, you know, if we look at the YouTube channel right now, right? If I just go into like the WWE YouTube channel right now, and I look at the Raw segment, I'll just look at a random Raw segment. There you go. So the Sasha Banks versus Bailey, Sasha Banks and Bailey versus the Kabuki War segment. It's only a 2-minute clip, 2-minute 25-minute clip, 641K views. That's already made up the difference in the views there, if you know what I mean. You know.
I mean, occasionally they have segments that hit several million views.
Yeah. Aleister Black and versus Murphy, 549K. You know, Randy Orton versus R-Truth, 591K. So that's where the difference is being made there. That's where the key demo's watching is in that there. You know, Ruby Riott and Bianca Belair segment, 776. That is where your viewership is watching. That's where the key demo is watching it now. They're not watching it on terrestrial TV. They're watching it online. And it's interesting because that then is interesting because they can now then talk to advertisers more directly for YouTube, because when you're big enough, you can actually have a relationship with advertisers more direct than with a TV show, and they can sell their own ads off the back of these YouTube clips, and that is probably where they're making the money up, and where they'll probably get the money to offset that key demo money is probably there.
Might be, yeah.
So there is something to say for that.
Yeah. Should we wrap this segment up? What do you think?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, to answer the initial question, why are we watching AEW and not WWE? Well, WWE, it's not all bad, but I'd rather watch a show about which I can say, yeah, it's not all good.
Yeah, we want consistency. It's consistency.
Yeah, it's not all good, but most of it is, and that's how I like my entertainment, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd rather be upset at the one bad angle than be happy about the one good angle.
Yeah, that's a better way of phrasing it. Thank you, John.
Not a problem. My apologies if I kind of stepped on your toes on that one.
No. That actually helped bring my point home. So I'm very glad.
Cool. Well, guys,